Greetings, America. It is a gloomy, crisp Friday morning here in southeastern Coastal Carolina, and I had previously made two videos where, in one of them, I just kind of had a semi-random discussion about a TV show I've been watching that stars one of the actors from a previous series my wife and I had watched for over 15 years, and some of the dynamics and some of what I thought about it. Basically, I elaborated on the concept that when I tune in, I don't want to be tuning back into the socio-political problems of the real world. I want to watch stories and tune out, like Resident Alien. Resident Alien with Alan Tudyk is great because for the most part, it's not reflecting anything. It's purely fictional about a guy who's an alien, whatever. So I talked at length about that as far as watching certain social issues reflected. And long story short, it's Walker. It's loosely based on the Chuck Norris television show Walker, Texas Ranger. And I guess perhaps I was expecting something similar to it, not a completely different revision of what that once was. And I guess maybe I've been expecting a little more of the Chuck Norris type storyline and less this new direction where they're definitely addressing certain socially woke issues. And then I had another conversation about Facebook because I recently had a post banned on Facebook because I'm a home brewer and I'm part of a local home brewing club, and we were getting ready for our gathering on Saturday, the 13th, I believe. I'll have to double check that. Not that it's important. And in preparation for it, I needed some assistance bottling some of the beer I had made specifically for that gathering, an Irish Red. And there's basically a device called a bottling gun, in which case you hook it up to your tap if you keg your beers, and it allows you to maintain carbonation in the bottle when you bottle straight from a tap on a kegged beer. Otherwise, if you pour directly off the tap into the bottle, it can eventually lose the CO2, the gas, and it could potentially oxidize, go flat, etc. Well, that post got banned, and I can only assume because the word gun was used specifically. So then I had a conversation at length about Facebook, and I even discussed a paper I had written for college, where Facebook actually lost a lawsuit against three individuals from Harvard that had the original idea of a thing called ConnectU, and they had actually contracted with Mark Zuckerberg to assist them in the programming, where he was found guilty of stealing their intellectual property. They won the lawsuit, but there's very little heard of it because it's one of those too little too late, where even if ConnectU did eventually come online in its original envisioned platform, Facebook is just too much of a juggernaut right now, and Mark Zuckerberg is himself a financial business juggernaut where he could afford to give away however many millions, whatever. So I talked about that, and the reason I'm not sharing those videos is because in the ever-changing landscape that is the United States of America, one of, if not the major reason I finally got off my ass and published my very first video is a friend of mine from high school. I'm not going to name him because I don't have his permission and I don't think that's proper, but a friend of mine from high school who I knew all 4 years in high school. I didn't know him in junior high, is what we called it back then, and now it's called middle school. A friend of mine had made a couple of posts, maybe 3 or 4, I can't remember the exact number, where he himself was espousing some of his socio-political thoughts, to include what some could, I guess, label as victimhood, or attempting to find his social currency within the intersectionality concept and developing his social currency. He is of Asian descent. I do believe from one of his videos he's Taiwanese. And chiefly among some of his issues is obviously he's not a big fan of the former president, and I think he believes in his heart of heart that any and all anti-Asian sentiment that he thinks he's experienced, or, and I'm gonna clarify that, is directly due in no small part because of anything and everything the former president has done. Now, I am not going to tear down his thoughts or his opinions, because I think that's how we're currently at where we are in the United States with this whole dehumanizing and demonizing of other people, because we don't share a similar belief on everything, and the one thing we disagree on all of a sudden is like a call to arms, and it's a line in the sand, and we must, go to war over it. So I don't wish to do that, but I do I do express the right to disagree. And whether you like it or not, the one thing Facebook does that I have to agree with, even if I don't like it all the time, is they oftentimes will flag content stating that it's missing context. It's missing context. Your contextual framing of this is not accurate. And granted, I think Facebook does that categorically against views that go against Facebook's personal socio-political views. But I think context is a big theme in America where things are missing. Like, he just recently, I think, changed his profile photo to stop Asian hate, and whenever you take a look at his profile photo, even going back to high school, and I'm very curious, I would actually love if he could comment on this and maybe provide some explanations, because growing up, we had this thing called birds of a feather flock together. And when you look back at like some of his photos from high school and even college, he is with nothing but Asian people. And I say that as in, did he feel he had to do that personally? Did he just gravitate that way? Was that some sort of interpersonal bias against other people, white, black, brown, red, or is that just how he gravitated? I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just asking general questions. And I've also noticed what seems to be a spike in his Asian pride. Whether that's in no small part as a direct reaction to the former president. But with this whole Stop Asian Hate thing, to clarify my position, first and foremost, I've always been anti-bigotry, within reason. I think at some point you have to allow some place in your mind and in your heart for dislike, disdain, dare I even say hate. But bigotry, when it comes to people who either use their religion as a form of segregation, and they use their religion as a form of bigotry, as like, we're superior because we believe this, or we're superior because this is our ethnicity, or this is our skin color. And I don't discriminate when it comes to that. If you're proud of your skin color or proud of your ethnicity, so much so that you look down on others for it, that technically makes you a bigot. That technically makes you, in some way, shape, or form, a racist. Don't like it? Don't care. Oh my God, I could count the ways I don't care. Like the last couple of drops on the tip of my penis when I take a piss that might touch the rim of the toilet. Yeah, don't care. All right. So now that I've clarified that rather colorfully, if I've turned you off by now, good. If you're still here, congratulations. So yeah, I've got very little tolerance for bigotry, and there has been a spike, although I don't know what the time frame is as far as There's been these video montages as of lately, whether on social media, whether on mass media like CNN or whatever the case may be, of video surveillance and whatnot showing attacks on Asians. And Asian is the broad scope, whether it's Chinese, Japanese, Cambodian, Laotian, Vietnamese, Philippines, Filipino, Taiwanese, Thai, anybody of a particular Asian persuasion that qualifies for that Asian umbrella. Apparently, there's been a rise and a spike in hate crimes against them. And I obviously despise that. But I do believe Ben Shapiro is the one who, on his own show, has basically said that the way that everything's being contextualized and the way that everything's being framed is that it's all because of white people. Now, my friend who I spoke about earlier, he attributes everything to the former president, President Trump. I'm not going to tell him he can't believe that. I'm not going to argue with his belief. I don't believe President Trump is directly responsible for anybody feeling a certain way, no more than any elected Democrat is directly responsible. Because if we're going to play that game, then the guy who shot up the softball game or baseball game, who was a Bernie supporter, well, then Bernie's directly responsible for that. All of the freaking protests that have turned violent, where people have died, property was damaged, where other elected officials have been on record in that location, especially if it was in an area that they're responsible for, who have more or less supported that, or even the news agencies that have supported these things, even the Cuomos. If we're not going to hold them responsible, then by that very same metric, all things being fair and equal, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, I can't hold Trump accountable. And in keeping with that, because he called it the China virus, which makes it responsible for all the Asian hate going on in America, I disagree with that. Because by that metric, and now my friend did go and quote, are we going to call the various strains the UK variant, the Canadian variant? Fair and valid point. I counter. There was this thing we called the Spanish flu, some almost 100 years ago, that ravaged the globe. And it was called the Spanish flu because that's where it started, was in Spain. Now, I'm not trying to be patronizing to you, my friend, but I'm just saying, and Trump has been on record, is like, no, it's not racist. The virus is from China. That's why I'm calling it the China virus, or the Chinese flu, or whatever you want to call it, because that's where it originated from. But I don't even think that's commonplace. I think the more common term is COVID. All right, and not even 19, just COVID. All right, I don't know anybody that uses it in popular vernacular as the Kung flu or the China virus. I think the common vernacular is just COVID. So, but he seems very adamant that it's the former president who is directly responsible for all the Asian hate that's taking place. And then specifically because of what took place in Atlanta. And I think this is where context comes into play. So let's contextualize this. If you remove the Atlanta shooting, which was god-awful, all of the other things that have been part of these montages, these video surveillance, these World Star videos, it's been at the hands of people who are not white. Because, you're not just something else. You're just white. You're not Irish, Scottish, Bohemian, Finnish, Danish. You're just white. So all those other European nations that have contributed to the gene pool of Caucasian, you're never one of those. You're just blanketed white. It's not those people. Now the shooter himself was a white guy. Not that that's saying much if I was here to attempt to defend the white nationality, so to speak, but he himself was white, and apparently he had demons with what he quoted as sexual perversion, which, if you want to, again, keeping with the idea of contextualizing, I don't think his anger was directed at Asians as much as it was directed at an industry which was majority populated by Asians. Where if it had been majority populated by somebody else, I think they would have been the brunt of his anger. But nevertheless, you know, it's the country we live in, because by coincidence, his anger was with a completely different topic, and it just so happened that it was Asians involved. So all of a sudden it's Asian hate. I'm nobody to change the rhetoric. I am nobody to change the narrative. I'm just stating a point. You know, just like all the people that have been caught on camera harassing, beating, just quote unquote Asian hate, have been other than white. So, you know, that's just fact. Is that going to change the narrative? Is that going to contextualize anything any differently? I don't know. But the reason I brought it up is this is the guy that motivated me to get off my butt, because over 90% or more, I'd say 95+% of his content is usually him battling an illness, and the things that he does to battle his illness and raise awareness for that illness, him doting on his kids as a very proud father, all of which I commend. And then every once in a while something just hits him, something just strikes him funny, and he can't take it anymore, and he dives into the socio-political sphere. And I'm pretty sure that's not his background. And if you're not familiar with me, the only reason I discuss these sort of things in any way, shape, or form is, first and foremost, I'm tired of this concept of white guilt, white shame, male guilt, male shame, heterosexuality guilt, heterosexuality shame. And, you know, it runs deeper than that too. You know, as somebody who served in the military, who volunteered to serve, did their 20 years, has been to combat numerous times, I think that in and of itself tends to shape your view of the world. And I hate to say it, but the majority of us that actually were in the ground combat MOSs and fought overseas, we for the most part tend to have a very similar political view, socio-political view. It just is what it is. And we have some pretty strong feelings, because what a lot of you may not appreciate is we fought to defend the Constitution of the United States. We didn't fight for a president. We didn't fight for a senator or a congressman. We fought for what we thought was our country and the ideals in which our country was founded on, as imperfect as it is. So that's why a lot of us tend to have more vocal opinions that we're willing to put out there. And when somebody who's not known for that reaches their culminating point and says some stuff, I take interest. And I may not agree with everything he's saying or his context. I'm not going to demonize or dehumanize him. He's entitled to his beliefs because I fought for those freedoms to have those beliefs. He's entitled to say what he wants to say because I fought for that freedom of speech. So, just like I also have the right to disagree with everything. I understand his sentiment. I just don't know if his context is there. However, whether he would like to engage in the conversation, and I'm fully capable of being polite and listening, and I would just request that you respect the same courtesy in return, where if I do disagree, I'm allowed to disagree and express my viewpoints. But even then, I'm still willing to listen, because I might hear something and be exposed to something I haven't heard and haven't been exposed to. So for you, if you are watching this, don't call it a challenge. Just if you want to get involved, by all means, get a hold of me. Even private message me if you want to. For anybody else, if you want to get involved in this conversation, expand your thoughts. See if we can get more of us in the middle. That's the whole point of these videos. While it seems like everybody else is trying to pull people in different directions, to the right or to the left, I'd like to see more of us get towards the center. Okay? I don't care if we disagree on one particular topic. That doesn't mean we have to be enemies. But it's not going to happen unless we have these conversations. So if you took the time to watch this, I thank you and I appreciate you. Hit the like button if you liked it. Hit subscribe if you want to subscribe to this. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified. But first and foremost, do me a favor and just leave some sort of a comment. Till then, that's all I got.